I stood on the banks. If you never lost a loved one, you don't know what I'm talking about. Had to see the ships go by.
So, Saturdays. For those of you that don't know, my dad was a minister, and you attended Sunday devotions. You attended the morning show or afternoon, I guess it would be, and then of course there was either a musical or some evening show. So that was Sunday. Tuesday was the youth Bible study. Thursday was the women's Bible study, and then you rounded it up with choir practice all day Saturday. And when I say all day, choir practice could be 4 hours. So with that, let's kick off Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I'm immediately going to go to my guest, Mr. Fred Edwards Jr., and I have a person who has guided me in my life and been one of the moving forces. Her name is Dr. Dorie McKnight. She is my cousin, and I refer to her as the spiritual leader of our family. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, thank you for having me, Mr. John.
It's good to have you on, Fred. So, do we have Dr. Dorie on? While Jacob is getting Dr. Dorie on, I want to talk a little about what today's show is going to be about. Like I said in the past couple shows, I've been unsettled in my spirit. And one of the things that helps me get back to center is some of the music that you heard playing. And so I thought, you know what? In these trying times and the negativity that we see, all these things that bombard us and hurt us to our core, what could I do to possibly help my listeners, maybe give you something that you can use to help be better, feel better? So I'm going to, Dr. Dorie, are you there?
I am here.
Hi, Dr. Dorie. So I gave your intro already. I'm going to start with you. Could you briefly talk about who you are, what you are to me, and Cover Girls, as well as your life?
Wow. Okay. Thank you for the introduction. I am Dorie McKnight. I'm an author, a playwright, a minister, a Bible school teacher, all of the above. Cover Girls in the Church is one of the books I wrote, and when I wrote the book, I thought it was for the church, but it was actually for some ladies in prison. And what Cover Girls in the Church talks about is who are the people that God used to build the church. People like Rahab, Sarah, different people that other people would not consider the people that you want to build the church. It was also used as a tool to take the fear out of the Bible. A lot of people are afraid of the Bible, but there are people in there just like myself that are
It would appear that we may have lost Dr. Dorie.
No, I'm still here.
Okay,
I guess
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to figure out in my mind how to hear you live and then to make sure that you're talking to me.
Okay. Well, right now I think you can continue on what you're doing because that was outstanding. So I'll sit back and listen until you tell me you're done.
Okay, and I'll be done briefly because it would take probably a lot of time to talk about the things that I've done going into the mission fields and such. But going back to what I'm talking about, the Bible, is to how to take the fear out of it, to talk about who were God's cover girls. Some of them were harlots, some of them were adulterers, all of the above. And so all of us are in there. And so it makes it less scary to touch the Bible. When we were children, John's mother is my auntie, my mother's sister. So we spent the weekends at their house, and I loved going over there because of as he said, his father was a reverend, and I just was somebody that loved God. So I liked being around them, They would play the Gospels all the time while we were cleaning the house from sunrise to sunset. We knew Saturday morning, don't make any plans, you're going to clean the house and all of the above, but we loved it because it was family. It was part of what we did. And so I learned not to be so fearful of God in the church. I actually loved it, embraced it. So that's a little brief introduction of who I am. That's who I am to this day. Still will turn on the Gospels to clean the house. Still will shut everything down and just let the Word of God in the music just kind of minister to me.
Amen. That is exactly you. I could not have said that better. Thank you for that intro. Please stay with us, and I'm going to have Mr. Fred Edwards Jr. It's funny because I've been introduced to him through other people, but we haven't met. And so, in doing my research about him, he informed me that your dad is who?
Apostle Fred Edwards.
Yes, and he's out of Minneapolis, and so. In Minneapolis, there is a strong, I don't want to say religious community, but Baptist community, and it all mixes, and we all know each other. So in doing it, I probably cross paths with your father on many occasions as we went to various churches for church celebrations, church anniversaries, and things like that. Fred, you want to give the people your bio, please?
Yeah, I always tell people I wear two hats. I'm an event curator, so I do events in the community that focus on sober fun and cultural education. And then I'm an educator, so I'm in about 9 different schools right now, and we teach leadership development, rites of passage, how to get from young adults to adulthood and create a pipeline to professions. And so our biggest thing is really cultivating leaders of tomorrow. We can do anything right now when we talk about what is the next generation, what's the future. It's really those young people who know exactly what they need and what they need to make an impact in. So that's what we focus on, is really giving them the opportunity, the platform, making sure that they get paid. It's really extremely important for us to make sure all of our youth get paid at least $21 an hour and really know that they're valued.
Okay. Give us some of your background. Are you married?
I will be really soon here, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, congratulations on that. So we're off and running with Talk of the Town. The big thing is I want people to take away from this show is that, we're trying to bring some cultural knowledge to Fargo in a way that helps people to see us as human, that help people embrace us, not necessarily to the point that you have to give us anything, but just have an understanding. So the second half of the show is going to be about Juneteenth. That is our national holiday of freedom. And I'm going to let Mr. Edwards discuss that. But in this show, I hope that somebody can take some spirituality out of it. I hope some people find some peace out of it. I have debating whether I'm going to pray at the end of this show, and it looks like more likely than not. And the reason I want to do that is one year, my dad had a sermon right around Christmas. And as you know, Christmas is now a commercial holiday, right? It's more about giving presents. It's more about the pomp and circumstances surrounding it. And one of his sermons was, we can't take the Christ out of Christmas. And he talked about the commercialization of Christmas. And so with that, in these times, I think part of the thing that's happened to us is that, I say this all the time, not necessarily Christianity, not necessarily Buddhism, whatever religion, whatever entity you pray to, it feels like in times we're moving away from that. So in this show, I thought, you know what? Let's talk about the fact that it may feel like we're moving away from it, but at the same time, I think that in trying times, we tend to move toward it. And this is a reflection of me saying, hey, we're moving in the right direction. Okay, with all the trials and tribulations, remember I talk about the Industrial Revolution, I talk about World War I and World War II, where people thought it was the end of the world. And there were people in churches, just like we're doing now, saying, Lord, we need you. So in this way, this is my way of saying, hey, look, we need to be a prayerful nation. We need to be a prayerful community. We need to start looking at each other in a way that says we have spirituality and we need to stay that course more than we're about the outside forces that are impacting our lives right now. According to Jacob, we have about 2 minutes. I want to talk briefly about growing up in Minneapolis. And growing up in Minneapolis, I got to tell you, there was no better place. People say, well, why are you still in Fargo? And I tell them, I said, in Minneapolis, everybody looked out for everybody. If I was downtown and I was doing something I had no business doing, if somebody on the street would tell me, hey, listen, don't do that, okay? If we needed something, there were very few times that I had to do anything. If people knew that you needed something, people were there. And I always use the example that when someone dies, funerals, everybody comes. Everybody gives you stuff, but then a week later, nobody's around. Well, imagine living in a community where every day is the day after somebody dies. Somebody's always looking out for you. Somebody's always concerned about you. And so now I'm here, and in this community, people look out for me, okay? I have this show. Somebody said, hey, you need to have Mr. Fred Edwards Jr. on the show. And I was like, well, I don't know that dude. But it's funny because I think this young man is a mover and shaker, and he's going to do great things, and the people that he's impacting are going to do great things. I have Dr. Dorie McKnight on the show because she has impacted thousands of women. And so these are the things that we need to focus on. Okay, not artificial intelligence, not the UFOs in the sky. We need to be purposeful and keep our mind in the right place. With that, we're going to come back after the break, and we're going to talk more with Dr. Dorie and Fred Edwards Jr., and we're off and running.
Hi, I'm Dana, mom of a happy, loving 4-year-old, thanks to Siriset. Before seeing Dr. Alla and the Siriset team, my son struggled with anxiety. He was withdrawn, had frequent meltdowns, and worried a lot. After completing my own sessions, I knew that Siriset could help my son. If you or someone you know is suffering with anxiety, I strongly encourage you to call Siriset today at 701-566-5231. Thank you, Siriset, for saving my family.
Happy Days are here again. Welcome to Happy Days, June 15th through the 18th in Lisbon, North Dakota. From your friends at Riverside Building Center. They are Southeastern North Dakota's premier dealer for all of your building supply requirements, from the basics to home improvement and complete pre-build homes. Also stop in for Do It Best hardware store needs. Enjoy Happy Days from Riverside Building Center, located at 1015 South Main, your local building supply headquarters in Lisbon. Happy Days are happening in Lisbon on June 15th through the 18th. Your friends Andy and Clint at Devitt Plumbing invite you to enjoy all the fun activities and events for the entire family at Happy Days. Devitt Plumbing is proud to be a part of the Lisbon community and serving the area for over 40 years. Contact Andy and Clint for installation, remodeling, and service. Have fun at Happy Days from Devitt Plumbing. Hey Jace, I have a great idea.
What?
On Friday, June 23rd, we're going to go to the longest open house and we're going to jazzercise from 9 to 10.
No, you can't be serious.
I definitely am, and just to incentivize you, we're going to have Jersey Mike subs afterwards.
You know, you should have led with that. That's the longest open house, 64-hour, record-breaking event raising funds for a cure to Alzheimer's.
That sounds like a great idea, Jace. We're inviting you to join us Friday, June 23rd with the Coffee Club from 8:30 to 11 a.m. for the longest open house.
The Red River Valley Fair is back July 7th through the 16th. Experience hands-on agriculture education at the Cass County Farm Bureau Ag Education Center during the 10 best days of summer. Learn where the food we eat comes from and how it gets from the farm to our table. There will be live dairy cow milking demonstrations as well as a variety of farm animals to observe. Stop in July 7th through the 16th at the Red River Valley Fair to experience agriculture and its importance to the Red River Valley.
It's summer in a big way. So go big at Mall of America. Your summer adventure is on with a stay at Radisson Blu Mall of America, conveniently connected to the mall. Swim a little, spa a little, shop up to 500 stores, enjoy every kind of dining, and so much more. Nickelodeon Universe has live Paw Patrol shows. Then get creative with the youngest ones at Crayola Experience. So you can go big just by going to Mall of America. mallofamerica.com/summer.
If it had not been for the Lord on my side, tell me, where would I be? Well, had not been for the Lord, oh my soul.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I'm here with, I almost called you Dr. Fred Edwards. That might have been a bit presumptuous, but I can't say Dr. Dorie McKnight. We are having a wonderful show. We're off and running. So both Dr. Dorie and Mr. Fred, let's talk about growing up Minneapolis or growing up Minnesota. Let's talk about some of the experience that shaped who you guys are. Dr. Dorie, you touched on it a little bit, but I want to get Fred's view of, I painted a pretty nice picture of Minneapolis. I want to know life experience. You're younger than I am, obviously, and I want people to get a flavor for your life experience, and that's part of the reason that we're here. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So I always tell people I grew up on the north side of Minneapolis, very inner city, rugged area. By the time I was 18 years old, I had lost 45 friends, shot and killed. So for me, I had seen a lot of tough things growing up, definitely a lot of poverty, chronic illnesses, different things, etc. And so for me, I always focused on what the beauty was, because where focus goes, energy flows. And so we always did. Having a father who's an apostle, having a mother who's a former, a gang member who has reformed and has created real big impacts. My family was huge, so I'm the last of 10 kids. So if you can imagine a house on the north side, you got all these kids coming out of that house. It's a whole lot of talent. It's a whole lot of beautiful things that you see in the city that doesn't typically get talked about on the news. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I always seen the dancers, I always seen the singers, but I also seen people who were investors in real estate and people who were investors into different things that were happening at the time. And so I think having that balance of living in the hood, but also having that church life, there was a huge conundrum, right? There was people who you knew didn't do what they said they did in the church, but there are also people in the hood who had that silver lining. And so for me, it was the gangbangers and the unfit mothers who did a lot of support in those areas. But at the same time, it was a lot of, yeah.
Talk about that.
So when I talk about support, I mean people who are willing to push you and say, hey, man, I really see something powerful in you. Like, I don't think you need to do what we doing.
And those people were who?
I would say they was like gang members, gangbangers, or what you want to call them.
So one of the things that I wrote a paper once in college, talk about the chosen few. And that's about, I'm not ashamed, I grew up poor, and I talk about that our community identifies the few that want to make the world better or going to have an impact on the world. And like you, I had those same people that were my support network, and they would tell me, look, and they would call me preacher, you can't be here.
Right.
You need to go over there. Or they would say, hey, what do you need?
Yeah.
I won't even describe the people that paid for my books when I went to college, but guess what? That's what they do. And it's funny because you wouldn't think that.
Right.
Or that's the knowledge that people have of it. And when you come from that environment, people say, you look at John Morant, and he's a perfect example. People don't understand that those are the people that held this kid down.
Yeah.
Okay? When he was struggling to get to where he wanted to be, and you don't forget that. And if you've never been through it, you can't possibly understand the mindset.
Absolutely.
And so for you to say that, it brings some light, it brings some energy to the fact that we go where we can go and we can do it, we can do it, and we can do it. And those people that help us get there may not look like the people that should be helping us. Conversely, we've always encountered those people that were in those positions that we thought would help us, and they couldn't do anything for us. So go ahead, continue. I just wanted to very salient point there.
I would say one of the biggest things is when I was 14 years old, my parents moved to Chicago, Illinois. My father took over a church down there, and I ended up staying in Minneapolis. And so I had two choices, either be emancipated or live with my big sister. And so my big sister at the time lived on the south side of Minneapolis at the Midtown Global Market. Completely different life. So I always tell people I had black teachers. Most of my community were black folks. I hadn't had a white teacher actually until I was in about 5th grade. So the normalization of white folks or different things like that wasn't for me. Not saying that we weren't around, but it just wasn't even something that, like, my church was fully, a black congregation, etc. Yes. And so in going over South Minneapolis, I had met a lot of Somali folks or Mexican folks or white folks that I had never experienced before. And so I lived at the Midtown Global Market, which was an international marketplace.
Yep.
And what I seen was that there were so many different identities and so many different spectrums of what it meant to be whatever you fill in the blank. But I also seen a lot of the same atrocities happening on the south side that were happening over north when it came to the various things that are happening in the community. I always just boil it down to chronic poverty and trauma, and people kind of making sure that people stay where they were.
Yeah, so you're touching on socioeconomics, and I tell people, a lot of people want to pretend like that's not a thing. Okay, they want to pretend like, okay, you can do better, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, But if bootstraps don't exist, where do you go from there? And it's funny because in spite of, you've managed to achieve.
Appreciate that. Yes,
and that's the thing. Dr. Dorie, I hope you're still on. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to both of you. So I want you to talk about growing up Minneapolis.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm here. I'm listening, and I grew up South Minneapolis.
South Side.
I always take a real cheap plug by telling everybody that I graduated I'm gonna tell you my age, 76, and I was on stage with Prince. So I try to relate Minneapolis to Prince, and just to, like I said, get a cheap plug. South Minneapolis, for me, as the gentleman is saying, we were like rivals, and when we really didn't need to be. But we thought we were rivals, of course, South and North, Minneapolis Central versus North Side, all of the above. It isn't until you become a full-grown adult that you see that all of that wasn't necessary, that it was just as the gentleman said, you just needed somebody to say, stop that. The eras have changed. I've lived in so many decades that the times have changed from when we were children and your neighbor was allowed to discipline you, put you in check, and tell your mama, and you might get in check again. Nowadays, it's a whole different time. It's a spirit of entitlement. It's no one's listening. Part of that I look at and accredit to, as you were saying, was the church. The church has always been a staple for us. It's always been a go-to place. The church has always been school. It's always been a hospital. It's always been home. If you couldn't go nowhere, you would go to church. The reverence for church nowadays has gone down, not just in the black church, but for the world. When you read of people going into a church, sit down, having Bible study with the people and then shoot them, or going into a synagogue, or going into a temple, into a mosque. The reverence for human life, we must continue to put that into the young people, to take those chances. Like I said, it's different now, as we all know. You drive on somebody's property, they'll shoot you. You go up on somebody's porch, they'll shoot you, But we have to step over all that fear and still impart wisdom and still impart the love for your community, the love for your fellow man. We got to get back to that. And taking prayer out of the school, no matter what religion it is, we found out not to be a good thing. You don't want God in the schools, and so people are coming in and doing what they want to do. So we have never lost the spiritual part of church being our anchor. And I appreciated that. That's what the young man said, too. I'm trying to see if I knew anybody, but when he talks and he talks about his age, I'm like, he's too young. So I probably did not connect with his father and his family by the time they went to Chicago. But exactly what he said, he decided, whose side am I going to be on, or what am I going to promote from here? And he chose the church, again, which has always been our anchor.
That is indeed. And that's, one of the things is I see a lot of people posting religious things on Facebook. And I always say, I don't know that God is on Facebook, but I do know this. It's important that they do that. It's important for them. It's important for their soul. Just like this show, having you and having having Mr. Fred on, these are things that feed my soul. And the interesting thing is, I wrote down some notes. The responsibilities of a PK, which is a preacher's kid, and maintaining one's spiritual identity. Okay, how do we do that in today? And I always say, for me, I try to be prayerful, and I am nothing like my Muslim brothers and sisters who pray 5 times a day. I said it before. I wish I would be more prayerful, and the Lord understands me. I am what I am in this life. But Talk about maintaining one's spiritual identity in today's society. I'll let you lead off, Dr. Dorie.
It's just like being a child. When you the learning is within your first 3 years. So, they even have a scripture that says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. And it isn't just so much also knowing the scriptures. It's a relationship. It's knowing God. It's knowing that God took you through, as the song Amazing Grace says, through many dangers, toils, and snare. That's everybody. We have already come. It was his grace that took us this far, and his grace will lead us home. Not losing who God is, not losing that there's a higher power, not ever getting so arrogant and having so much ego that you think it's all about you. We have a generation now that's all about you. Even in the church, it's being taught that it's about you rather than the Bible part that says to love your neighbor more than yourself, or to love your neighbor as you love yourself. The problem is a lot of people don't love themselves because they weren't given the love, they weren't given the good gospel message. We say it, Jesus loves you, but do you love me? And if you love me, and if you love Jesus, and if you love yourself, then we should be treating each other different. So you have to, like you said, you have to have some type of prayer, some type of relationship, not a religion, but a relationship with God, to know that he's there for you, that when you're having tough times, you can pray, and he's always going to answer you. And again, pass on the good. I don't promote a lot of religions, but I do promote the good that's in the religion. Promote the good. Find the good. Find something good to say. The scripture says that if you're pure in heart, you're going to see God. What does that mean? If you have a clean heart, if you're not judgmental, whatever your neighbor needs or sees or says, you should be looking at them through the eyes of God.
Thank you. That's a wonderful statement there. So Jacob tells me that we're up against the break. We're going to push the Juneteenth talk to the next segment. We definitely have to get to that, because as I talk about Juneteenth, a lot of people ask me, well, why you need Black History Month? Why do you need this month? Why do you need that month? Well, if I'm not mistaken, we consider the United States a melting pot. And so when we talk about immigrants, when we talk about different cultures, we seek to add to the fabric of America, not detract from it, okay? So when you see us celebrating and doing these things, we add to the culture and the fabric that is America. That's what we're all about. That's what I think the United States is. And so since we're up against the break, when we come back, we're going to talk a little more about spirituality. We're going to definitely get to Juneteenth. We're going to get some more thoughts from Mr. Fred and Dr. Dorie. Thank you. This is Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. If you want to call in, it's 701-293-9000. We'll see you on the other end of the break.
Smoky sunshine for this afternoon. We'll have light winds out of the northeast and highs in the mid to upper 80s. Overnight tonight, we'll continue with the smoky skies with lows in the low 60s. Light winds out of the northeast at 5 to 10. We'll start to thin that smoke out a little bit on Thursday. Under mostly sunny skies, we'll have highs in the upper 80s with an east-southeast wind increasing at 5 to 15. A cold front will bring some showers and thunderstorms Thursday night and into Friday with highs a little cooler in the lower 80s. From the WDAY Skywatch Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki.
A day after appearing in federal court and pleading not guilty to 37 felony counts over his handling of classified documents, former President Trump is back at his New Jersey golf club, marking his 77th birthday and mounting his legal team. ABC's news legal contributor Kimberly Whaley says Trump's claim of immunity under the Presidential Records Act likely won't work as a legal defense.
The Presidential Records Act distinguishes between official records and personal records, and I don't think there's any legitimate argument that classified information in any way, shape, or form was personal to Donald Trump.
Plans to repair the collapsed section of I-95 in Philadelphia on dual tracks. The first is a quick fill and pave fix to reopen the road, and the governor says crews will then construct a permanent bridge. The Federal Reserve Board meeting today and is expected to leave interest rates unchanged for the first time in over a year of hikes. That as recent economic data shows inflation is easing. I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Why are so many business professionals lunching at Barron's Eatery at Kingpins? Oh yeah, those guys with ties, pals, and professional gals all making it to Barron's Eatery at Kingpins, Jack's Way South, off 52nd near I-29. Great appetizers the office will love, like firecracker egg rolls and crispy calamari. Try one of the 5 different kinds of pizza, 4 different kinds of pasta, and handhelds, like burgers, wraps, and clubs, and walleye. It's a must-try in Fargo. There's a reason why so many leave the office and lunch at Kingpins. Yes, Barron's Eatery at Kingpins is known for hosting birthday parties, corporate and team building parties, but don't miss out on their lunch. Amazing salads and soups if you're eating right or just want to keep it light. And the dessert menu is to die for. S'mores, and try their raspberry donut cheesecake, wow. Barron's Eatery at Kingpins, Jack's Way South, east of I-29. It's a must-try for a business lunch. Go to lunch@barrons.com.
Hyperbaric oxygen treatment is here now. It can show improvements inside and outside your body. It can affect the aging of blood cells. It can help you repair skin, smooth fine lines and wrinkles. This treatment can help you feel younger by providing your muscles and joints with more oxygen and improved circulation. Find out what it can do for you at SwansonHyperbarics.com. SwansonHyperbarics.com. Call for an appointment, 929-3930, 25th Street, Fargo. SwansonHyperbarics.com.
Three Lions Pub is a place for ladies' night every Friday and Saturday night. Ladies get $1. You call it from 7 to 10. There's a drawing for relaxing products from Nature's Therapy.
Bring your better half for the Friday night date night deal. 2 meals and a bottle of wine for $35. There's also a variety of beer on tap. Lunch is back 7 days a week, 11 to 3. And all first responders, military, and seniors save 15% every day.
Friends, food, and fun at Three Lions Pub on 13th Avenue in West Fargo.
It's about tradition, values, and family ties. Pucklet Chevrolet GMC's tradition of giving back to our community remains a priority, and that's why we've partnered with many local nonprofit organizations and events. And our tradition of giving this community a fair and honest offer continues. Right now, you can save over $6,000 on select new Chevy Silverado 1500s. We're Pucklet Chevrolet GMC in Valley City. Tradition, values, and family ties.
See dealer for details.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I'm sitting here with Mr. Fred Edwards Jr., and I have on the phone Dr. Dorie McKnight, my cousin, my spiritual advisor, my spiritual leader. And I have to tell you, I was sitting here during the break talking to Mr. Fred, and I have to tell you that this has been such an impactful show for me, because it just feels good to talk to people and have this dialogue and have this conversation. And you know, I told Fred during the break, I say, you know, it gets hard fighting the fight, whether it's spiritually, whether it's working in the community, whether it's trying to move the needle forward. Sometimes you get tired. And so I was talking to Mr. Fred, and I told him, I said, I got goosebumps, because we always wonder who's going to pick up the torch, who's going to pick up the mantle. How can we continue to move this thing forward? Not necessarily just for us, but for our community at large. You know, do we have the young people that are going to step up and be greater than themselves and support something that may not necessarily be for them And so in this young man to my left, I don't want to say that, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just happy to have you on my show.
Hey, I appreciate you.
I'm happy to have that you have a voice. And I suggested that based on the strength of who you are, this is not the last that you have heard of Fred Edwards Jr. I hope he likes it enough where he can come back and update us on his work. I want to get some of the people that he has helped in this community. I want people to know that there are platforms out there. If you are a young person and you're struggling, or even if you're not struggling, or you don't know which levers to push, or you don't know what buttons to push to move the needle forward in your life, this young man, just his vision and his purpose, I think that he's one of those people. Is if we hold him up and give him the strength and the confidence and the things that he needs to do things in the community, that in Fargo, you going to stay in Fargo, Fred? I hope so.
Hey, that's the goal.
And so this is what builds community, and this is why I love living here. Okay, this guy gives me hope for the future. You know, I'm fired up. I got passion for the future, and it's difficult to maintain in these trying times. So with that, we're going to shift gears a little bit because I think it's important that we talk about the Juneteenth celebrations. Fred has organized quite a few of them. Dr. Dorie and I, we've experienced them in Minneapolis. And there are two events that happened in my life that I always remembered, and I loved them every year. I could not wait. And one was Rondo Days. So for you guys that don't know, Rondo used to be a neighborhood in Minneapolis. And when they decided to put the highway in the city, it ran right through our most prominent black neighborhood. And it separated our community in a way that we've never been able to come together since then. But back in the day, there were two gentlemen that organized these celebrations to celebrate that neighborhood and to celebrate us. And I can tell you what, I could not wait for the summer to go to Rondo Days. And then the second was the Juneteenth celebration. Now, I've talked about the fact that, hey, look, I'm American. I was born in Duluth, Minnesota, okay? Some people say Afro-American. I'm an American, all right? First and foremost, I don't say the Pledge of Allegiance, but guess what? I still sing the national anthem, okay? That's my personal choice. I still believe in our government. That's my personal choice. I still believe that, hey, as Americans, I still believe this is a great country because of people to my right, people to my cousin that's on the phone. We are a great nation, but guess what? If we don't hold our government accountable, if we don't hold the powers that be accountable so that we can have effective, intentional change, then we will continue to struggle as a nation. We'll continue to have those problems. So I'm encouraging my listeners to step outside yourself, grab the information, find out about something that may not be in your wheelhouse. We know about Cinco de Mayo. We know about St. Patrick's Day. You know, let's learn about other cultures like Ramadan. What does that mean to our Muslim brothers and sisters? So with that, I'm gonna let Dr. Edwards talk about the Juneteenth celebrations come out, and I want you to talk about Juneteenth and Rondo Days as it meant to you growing up in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that about just the celebrations that took place in our communities. And oftentimes I think people kind of water these situations down. Like I know Juneteenth is becoming commercialized. If you look it up on Amazon, there's a whole lot of stuff for sale right now. And for me, I grew up going down to the lower end of North Minneapolis and going to the Juneteenth celebration. I had over 30,000 people there, right? And I think oftentimes when people seen that celebration, they couldn't believe their eyes. They didn't know what was going on. And a lot of people wanted to get their hands in it. They wanted to get paid from it. And so I actually work with a gentleman named Dr. Lee Henry Jordan down in Minneapolis, and he does the big Juneteenth down there, and he's been doing it for 31 years. And that has always been something that our families went to. You would see the mayor there. You would see governors and social workers there. You would see teachers there. And like I said, I grew up in a very black affluent neighborhood. So when you talked about, or when Dr. Dorie talked about, like your neighbor would whoop you and spank you, I'm kind of glad we don't do that anymore. I'm glad we moved away from that because I think there's still so much healing that needs to take place. And what Juneteenth allows for the entire community to do is really look at the atrocities of human trafficking and genocide and really say, let's heal and reflect on the moments in which we didn't step into our humanity, the moments in which we acted like the demons in the Bible in which y'all talk about. because that is not who we are as a community. And so Juneteenth, what it allows us to do is something that July 4th can't do. July 4th is 1776, which they were still enslaved people. So my ancestors, which are the Williams, Givens, and Edwards, biggest plantations in America, some of the biggest ones, they were still enslaved. And so what we do is we celebrate on 1865, but really the Emancipation Proclamation took place in 1863. And so what people don't know about the story that typically gets watered down is they say the Union troops came to free the enslaved people in Galveston, Texas. And what I say is that's actually false. What happened is the colored troops specifically came down there. It was about 109 colored troops, meaning people who didn't get the full GI Bill, people who were veterans but didn't get treated, that got treated as second-class citizens. They made sure that their lineage and that their culture knew that they were free, and so they went down to Galveston, Texas, and freed those folks. And in real time, we had Jubilee, we had celebrations, and for I would say 200 years now, it is the oldest African American holiday. For 200 years, Black Americans typically would go take that day off of work to celebrate and recognize that we are, what I like to tell people is, you have never seen a group of people go from being stripped of their culture, being stripped of their religions, being stripped of their knowledge and education. These are doctors, lawyers, farmers who were enslaved and brought here, being stripped of all of that for 400 years, to teaching themselves how to read, to teaching themselves how to grow and develop. And so I appreciated how we talked about earlier, even like the gangbangers or whatnot, or the people who are labeled as not great people were impactful for us, because I think about one of my favorite people to read about is Malcolm X. And Malcolm X was Detroit Red at one point, selling cocaine and reefer, right? And then he went to a place of, no, I need to save my community. I need to impact my community in a different way. And he chose that through religion, which we talk about a lot, through that spirituality. And so Juneteenth in itself, for me, is this ability and understanding that we are only as great as who brought us to where we are, right? We couldn't be where we are without our ancestors. We couldn't be in this position right now, even talking on this microphone, without somebody thinking about it and praying about it 300 years ago, 200 years ago. And so this celebration of Juneteenth is something that is not only impactful, but it's inspiring. And then Rondo Day. So there's a lady by the name of, I'm forgetting her first name, but she's a McGee. And the McGees were a familiar family in the Rondo neighborhood in St. Paul. And she has this pecan pie thing that she does. And so the McGees, her son name is Adam McGee. And we brought him to Fargo to talk about the VR and how you can create justice through VR. And so I'm saying all of this to say, every generation has ways that they create impact, and it might not be in the way that the last generation seen it, but we are doing it in our own way. And so this year, you want me to talk about Juneteenth now?
Absolutely.
So for the last 4 years, we have been doing Juneteenth events in Fargo that have been open to the entire community. All of our events are free or low barrier, meaning we want everybody to come out to understand, grow, develop, and have fun. And so we have 2 events happening this year. One will be at NDSU Renaissance Hall, 650 MP Avenue, from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. There will be carnival games. There will be face painting, caricatures. There will be soul food, African food. There will be West Caribbean food. There will be photo booths. There will be VR technology, augmented reality that you can learn about Black history. We have PBS coming in and do films. We got a hair show. There's so much happening at this event that I'm missing stuff that people are going to text me like, yo, am I not part of that? And so that's just one event. And then I believe in bringing youth forward and giving them the opportunity. So we have about 6 or 7 16 and 17-year-olds who plan our Film and Art Festival, which takes place at the Yomcall Center on the Moorhead side. And so that event is on the 19th from 4 to 8 p.m. And so super grateful for the opportunity to showcase to the community our culture and so forth.
Go ahead. Keep going.
And so this year we had the city of Fargo. They invested into our Juneteenth event to make sure that it happened. Last year we won an award from the governor. Governor Burgum gave us the Main Street Award for the Healthy, Vibrant Community for our 3rd annual Juneteenth. So we've been slowly but surely making an impact. And for me, we had 800 people show up last year. I think this year we'll have 800 people, but last year was 111 degrees. And so what we're seeing is that if people are willing to stay out there in that temperature, especially my folks who live in this area who skin may not love the sun or sun may not love their skin, however you want to see it, we know that we are creating an impact and a sense of belonging. But I want to be very transparent. This is a space and place for people who want to grow and have an open mind.
I want to thank you for that. We're up against a break, but I want to talk about the Juneteenth celebration. So one of the things that help us maintain a vibrant community is the ability, and like I said, you know, in my life, I've had many what I like to refer to as allies that don't look like me, that have helped me get to where I want to be in life, okay? And there are a lot of great people in Fargo. I would encourage you, come out and be a part of these celebrations. Learn a little more about your city, because this is your city. What's happening on Juneteenth is a part of the fabric of Fargo, and we need to embrace that like we embrace Potato Days in Barnesville, which, by the way, I love that. The street dances that we go to, this is just another form of us connecting on a level where we can come and have a good time and fellowship and learn about each other, because we all are in this together, as I'm fond of saying, okay? And I know that a lot of my friends that are allies, they have some of the same concerns, they have some of the same issues that I have, and we have to get together and we have to communicate and we have to talk about these things, and we can't be afraid of dialogue. I think it is so tragic that we've gotten to the point in our community that we can't say what's on our mind without somebody feeling some type of way about it. And we, as human beings, we are social creatures. We need that. We need that connection. And Juneteenth, I'm gonna make a point. I'm shutting down Adams window cleaning. I'm gonna be at both of those events because I think it's something that is worthwhile. I think it's educational. Plus, I got to tell you, as a brother, to go and sit among my people, there's a certain comfort level that you get. Like talking about when we were at Juneteenth, the whole city was black, and it was wall to wall. And we didn't have trouble. We didn't have fights. It was just a community, and it was a wonderful thing. And it brings a certain level of calmness to me. And so we went to Jamaica this year, and Jamaica was 90% brothers and others, but to be in that situation, it just does something. So for me, I look forward to things like this, as well as, like I said, I look forward to Potato Days. But I would encourage everybody, come on out, support us. This is part of your community. We will be appreciative. We will be welcoming. I think you will be, as a matter of fact, you won't be surprised, because we've been doing great things for a number of years in spite of. And we talk about it all the time. How are we able to be what we are in spite of all the things that we've been through? We certainly don't want anybody to look at it like, oh, we should get an award. But guess what? Life isn't easy for everybody, and this is what we're doing to make life a little bit better for everybody. We'll see you on the other end of the break. This is Jon Adams, Talk of the Town. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000, or you can, just call in. Thank you and have a good day. We'll see you on the other end of the break.
Rich Risva with American Ag Network here for this market update. We're chatting with Arlen Suderman, Chief Economist at StoneX. Arlen, today is yet another Fed day, and we'll get those results this afternoon. What do you think we can expect, and what kind of implications is that going to have moving forward here?
Well, the market is currently trading 98% odd that the Fed will not raise rates at this meeting, and when announced this afternoon, the expectation is that we'll have a hawkish pause. In other words, the Fed saying we're not raising rates today, but we likely will in the future, although the core inflation numbers continue to be sticky. In other words, it was largely a decrease in energy prices that had the big impact on reducing the PPI during the month of May. We still see the stickiness, especially in the inflation in the service sector, that continues to be the problem, and a lot of that's tied to wage inflation. And we'll see what the Fed actually does this afternoon. They've vocalized in the past that is one of their greatest concerns, but perhaps they'll wait and see if we get more impact in future reports and wait till July with another rate hike.
Well, and as I look at the grain market today, I see a lot of red numbers. It's mixed, but mostly lower. What's moving those markets today?
Like a lot of it has to do with commodity traders watching the Fed, waiting to see what the Fed is going to do, a little bit nervous about the Fed. The recent strength in the stock market might give it cover to go ahead and raise rates if it feels like it's going to need to anyway. And I think that has commodity traders a little bit worried today. We're generally seeing pressure across the board in many of the commodities today. Not a lot, but general weakness there, extending from the energy markets into the grain and oilseed markets.
Those have been comments by Arlen Suderman of StoneX. For the American Ag Network, I'm Richard Ristvet.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. That song that you heard right now, that's John Bolton Atwell, and that song always brings me back to center. It always helps me to rely on my teachings, and I wanted to play that. I just want to say, I want to just give a quick prayer. I want the Lord to bless our nation and bless the people that are in the community and help us to have understanding, Lord, and bring us to you in the way that we should be as a nation. With that, we're going to do a wrap up. I want to talk to Dr. Dorie. I want you to give the people some final thoughts in regard to your life and moving the needle forward for the people in your community. And then I'm going to have Mr. Fred do the same thing.
All right. I agree with you. A wonderful broadcast, wonderful plethora of information, and we want to go forward. I heard something the other day that we're a movement, not a monument. We don't want to stand still. We want to go forward. I believe times have moved forward. The Juneteenth is a celebration, but it's also a reminder. And for me, my roots are always going to be spiritual. It's always going to be in the beginning, God. And so I'm excited for what's going on, what people have learned. We learned even through the George Floyd thing here in Minneapolis. We learned a lesson. We saw all over the world that people were saying, no, we're not doing that. And we have to continue to fight for what's right. We have to just continue to fight for what's right, and that's in every community. That's in every community. And you said something earlier that I just wanted to say real quickly. And again, most of the things that we repeat, we've heard somebody say, unless they're straight from heaven. Mm-hmm. And that's about being a melting pot. And I agree with the person that said we don't want to be a melting pot. We all have to stand out. We all have to embrace each other's differences, each other's colors, each other's cultures. You don't have to do them, but that's what they were taught. That's what they believe, and you have to respect that. So I don't necessarily want us all to melt together in the spirit and in unity, but I want to know. I'm an Army brat, so I saw different cultures traveling the world. I want to know people, and I want to know what they believe. So with that, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Fred. We only got a couple minutes here.
All right. What I say is I'm one voice of the collective many. There are many people who have paved the way for me. When you talked about allies, I think about Miss Crystal Spring, who was my black box theater teacher in high school, told me poetry was a way to heal. And I got 2 TED Talks out now doing that, doing poetry and healing and helping heal. And then,
wonderful TED Talks. Please go listen to those. They were moving for me. I hate to cut you off. First of all, I want to apologize. Pastor Paul from Hope Lutheran was supposed to be on this show also, and I don't want to say he got bumped, but I think the Hope message needs a show of its own. So, Pastor Paul, I apologize. We will be having a feature show on Hope Lutheran and what they do in the community as well as globally. Again, so I'll let you finish, Mr. Fred.
No, you all good. I was just saying I'm one voice of the collective many. There are many people who have been doing work a long time. Most of the movements, when we talk about any movement, when you think about it, it has roots in another movement. And so for me, I think that you have to do the work. You can't really make excuses. I think that there's always room to complain. There's always room for opinions. But if there's not room for solutions, then we'll continue to do the same things. And so we created 2 solutions. One is if we want to create an ecosystem for a sense of belonging in North Dakota, we got to create it ourselves. We can't expect other people to create it for us. And I like Kraut Days as well. You missed Kraut Days, but you talked about Potato Days. And then the second thing is I'm an educator in the community. Meaning I care a lot about our history and who we are as people, as a collective community, but also I come from an African-American lineage, and I know where my ancestors lie. I know where the kingdoms lie. And so I think if there's anybody out there who's like, man, I'm so happy that I heard this message today. I'm so happy to be on this platform today. Challenge y'all to come out to Juneteenth, learn about some culture, eat some soul food, eat some spicy rice, and maybe bring some milk just for that. But thank y'all so much for having us. If you want to learn more about what we do, I would say just Google my name. You'll see some cool things.
Thank you very much. This is Jon Adams for Talk of the Town. I got to sign off. We're up against it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank my guest, Dr. Dorie McKnight and Mr. Fred Edwards Jr. Again, let's have a great week. do something kind, do something to move the needle forward for something else that can never be a bad thing. Thank you. This has been Jon Adams for Talk of the Town signing off, and have a great week.